Self-confidence and procrastination. Tape number 8 of the Alpha Awareness Tape of the Month program, prepared by Verl Minto and distributed by the Alpha Awareness Tape Distribution Center, Post Office Box 8238, Spokane, Washington 99203. Self-confidence and procrastination. Lean back, relax. Circle with me now, folks, as we talk about procrastination and self-confidence. And we need to approach this just a little bit from two angles. We need to examine it in two parts. First, self-confidence, because most of us have total self-confidence in procrastination. We're good procrastinators. In fact, I know some people, and I could include myself among that at times, that are mental, physical, and spiritual procrastinators using all three dimensions with emotion. And then we harvest the frustrations day after day because we're putting that off. Number one, before we start into the material, remember this. Circle with it. Think, think, think. The moment you make a decision, procrastination ceases. Even if you have 2,000 things to do, and you can clearly, in your consciousness, say, I'm not going to do any of these, I'm going down to the beach and lay in the sunshine and get a suntan, then you're not procrastinating. You see, procrastination is frustration. It flows through the body because you're doing one thing and saying, I'm not getting this done, or I should be doing this. I'm watching TV and I really ought to be house cleaning. I'm watching TV and I should be cutting the lawn. I should be cutting the wood. So procrastination, number one, think of it, will not exist when you make a decision. All of the chemicals go out of the body. They're being created by frustration the moment you say, I am not doing it now. So above all, as we talk about self-confidence and procrastination, be aware that a decision-making person, clear-cut decision, does not suffer the pangs of procrastination. Now, every one of us has total self-confidence, We've had self-confidence in many, many things in our life. Have you ever had self-confidence in depression? Totally self-confident? And got that delicious depression? Have you ever been self-confident about being happy? Total happiness? You see, we have the right to be either one, and we alone can guide that mechanism to which we wish to receive that day, either the depression or the happiness. So sit back and relax and let your mind circle with me. Let your mind take you out to things that have happened in your life. Let your mind take you out to things you've seen happen in other people's lives, but also remember, in the circling technique, it has to be about the information we're talking about. So circle with me, because as you circle, your mind will have 5 hours of understanding from the next 1 hour of tape, or of listening you're going to do to this tape. So circle with me, and here we go. Self-confidence. Everyone has total self-confidence. No one has ever had a failure in your life. Now sit back for a moment and think. Have you ever had a failure? Absolutely not. You have never failed at anything you've done. In fact, when you were created, you were given a non-failing device. It's called your brain-mind functioning, your thinking process. And it just can't fail. Now that startles us for a moment, and we look back and say, yes, Verl, I failed at this. I was totally depressed. Was that a failure? No, think for a moment. Wasn't that a successful depression? Totally successful? Have you ever had successful happiness? Yes, we've had successful happiness. Have you ever been in poverty? Just not enough money? Was that a failure? No, it was total successful poverty. I had poverty in my life. Total successful poverty. To the point, one more step, it would have been a grand success. It would have been bank failure. I thought I was failing at that time, but people, I had successful poverty. It was one of the greatest successes I've ever had in my life. I had total self-confidence in my poverty that day. So you see, this non-failing device that we have just can't fail. And as a man thinketh, so is he. It's an age-old statement. We've heard it many times, but let's get down to the simplicity of it. The truth. Everything you do is a success, and you can pick and choose your successes in life. We must be aware that our thoughts guide ourselves to successes in the positive place, or successes to what we might call the negative dimension. Circle. Every thought you have is a prayer. Every thought you have is an affirmation. And here's where we get in trouble sometimes. We think we know what we're thinking about. But you see, the mind works so fast that sometimes we don't even know what we're thinking about. It's playing the old tapes from the past. In the simplicity in the class, we've used it many times. It's so simple, it just simply brings the information home. Think about it. We consciously know the truth that what the mind can conceive and believe, it will achieve. What the mind can conceive and believe, it will achieve. And we conceive many things thinking consciously that we believe them, then in total self-confidence in the subjective area, no, we don't. As an example, I'm going to quit smoking this weekend. I'm quitting smoking forever. And that goes into the mind, and your self-confidence in there begins to play, and it kicks up another thought, and it says, boy, I hope the stores are open if I can't make it. So you see, you conceived to quit smoking this weekend, but your self-confidence was, I hope the stores are open because I know I'm not going to make it again. You got a pain in your body somewhere. I know I can heal myself. I know. That's what you conceive. That's your conscious thought. And you think that's what you're thinking. I can heal myself, but my God, I hurt. You have total self-confidence in the hurt that you're having. So what you conceived was just perception to key your self-confidence in the hurt that you're going through 24 hours a day. And we must be aware enough, we must be up enough, we must be quick enough to catch those thoughts. So be aware that every thought you say is a prayer, every thought you say is an affirmation. And it's marking and making inroads on the brain. It's cutting a trench in there, and it's with you for life. Everything you've thought, you've said, you've done will stay with you for life. And you always keep that original and only give the carbon copy away. So as a man thinketh, so is he. It cuts a tape, and that tape can come back to guide us 10 years later. So let's examine that word confidence very carefully at this point and see what it means. What does confidence mean? What does confidence mean? Let's approach it this way. We have heard that the strength of any muscle within the body is in direct proportion to the confidence in which we use it. The strength of any muscle within your body is in direct proportion to the confidence in which we use it. What we think we can do, way down in the self-confidence area, in the subjective area, where real self-confidence comes from. You see, you've read, haven't you, in the newspaper about the person who went out and picked a 2,000-pound car, the front of the car up with a bumper, and took it off her husband when it fell off the jack down onto the husband's legs. What was her self-confidence? Did she have to think twice? No. It was, I can, I will. Total self-confidence without turning off. Then it comes to this. We have heard you can move mountains when you believe it. What the mind can conceive and believe, it will achieve. When we have the self-confidence that we can move a mountain, we will move a mountain. Now, let's not try for the big mountain sitting up here, the Mount Everest or Mount Hood. Let's move those mountains in terminology within our own soul, within our own brain-mind functioning, within our own thought pattern, that need to be moved aside, the ones who need to be taken out, the ones who need to be built up, and let's do it with total self-confidence. And to do this, the word confidence means you have confidence. You know it's the truth. Now, to explain this, let's think, what does confidence mean? When you say, I have confidence in another person, what does that mean? What does confidence in another person mean? That means somebody that you would talk to, correct? Somebody that you would tell your secrets to. Not everybody, but if you have confidence in John, you will converse with him and tell your secrets to him. So now let's go to our own mind and see what confidence means. Confidence means those things we believe in subjectively. Those tapes we have programmed in there that absolutely qualify everything we do. And you see, when we say we have self-confidence, that means we talk to ourselves. How many of you people talk to yourself? Think about that. How many of you talk to yourself out loud? Verbalizing, very powerful technique. Sometimes we're ashamed to say we talk to ourselves out loud. That's a fantastic way to make affirmations come true, is verbalizing. We'll deal with that subject in another tape because it certainly needs to be dealt with. So self-talk that you verbalize, nobody around, but the whole thought pattern's all hooked together, and you put it out, and the whole thoughts come out, and you verbalize it. You actually hear it. That's a type of self-confidence, talking to yourself. Then there's sub-vocalization. This is when we think in thought patterns, and they continue just to go out in full thought patterns. All hooked together, but we don't open our mouth. The lips do not move. If you had a machine hooked up to the throat, it would record a vibration for every thought the brain was delivering, except the tongue is not moving, the lips are not moving. You're not physically talking the words. That is a second type of self-confidence or thought. And then we go to the third type of self-confidence, which is the roots of thoughts, and those are the images that we think about. And you see, we all think in colored images. Now think of it. Think of 1 dozen white eggs in a carton at your favorite store. What color is the carton? Think of a boat on a beautiful blue lake. Sailboat. What color is your boat? What color is the sail? What color is the sky? What color are the trees? You see, we think in colored images. These are roots of thought, and these go by so fast that sometimes we don't even know what we think about. They move so quickly. But as a man thinketh, so is he. We must become totally aware of these thought programs if we want to control ourself and have our self-confidence go to the positive side instead of programming us down to the negative side in our life. So the intimate conversation that you hold with yourself is your self-talk. You see, those people that you'll intimately converse with are the people you have total self-confidence in. And you intimately converse with yourself in self-talk perhaps 24 hours a day. Let's investigate this self-confidence, this self-talk, for just a moment, and then we will dovetail this into eliminating procrastination in our life. Because how many of us spend more time self-talking about the things we can't do, self-talking about how bad business is, self-talking about the failures we've had in our life, self-talking about the sickness and the illnesses. You have a business meeting and people come in and sit down and propose a new project, and everybody begins thinking, which is self-talking, which is self-confidence, about all the hang-ups in it instead of looking for the positives. And if we'd all self-talk about the positive, what could this world be? If you can't find enough positives, then you will eliminate it and go on to something else, but you'll be in a totally positive mood. So let's talk about the three bases of self-confidence, that intimately conversing with yourself, the verbal, where you actually have the thought, no one's in the house. This is a fantastic way to make things happen. Get in front of a mirror. And if you have an affirmation, get up and speak it out loud. It's coming from the roots of thought, from the images first. Those images are going together, making a continuity thought. That continuity thought is coming down into the conscious mind. The conscious mind is putting it into action to the physical, and you verbally speak it. So now you've had the concept, you've thought it out, which is the mental dimension, and now you're speaking it, which is verbal. And if you'll go one step further, write it down and put that on your mirror. You've used all the dimensions, and every one of those is a repetition that will help plant it within your mind. Help you have totally self-confidence in that area so you can make it happen in your life. So the verbal self-confidence, talking to yourself, fantastically powerful. Let's go to the second. The sub-vocalization, that where your mind is putting the whole message together, but you are not speaking it, just thinking it. This is not as powerful as speaking it to make things happen, but it's very powerful, and it's your self-confidence. And this goes on so fast and all day long. You see somebody walking down the street, and just from looking at them, you begin having a conversation in your mind, correct? And your self-confidence could be, I don't like that person because they wear their hair that way. Be aware of this self-confidence talk going on, and maybe that person's the most beautiful person in the world, and you should know them. You see, one night eating a restaurant in Ogden, Utah, I had total self-confidence about a young lady who was a waitress that I'd never even met. As I started to leave the restaurant, started to walk out the door, she said something to a table next to me in sort of a nasal tone. I perceived that, it went into my brain, and it started the tapes playing, and all of a sudden, as I was walking out the door, I thought, I'm never going to eat here, I don't like that girl. I was having total self-confidence, a little conversation with myself that I didn't like that girl, and I said, whoa, Verl, why is this happening? Awareness, you need it. Why is this happening? And I went back and re-examined my self-confidence, that little intimate conversation I was having with myself about that young lady. And you know, I found out that the reason I had thought that is because that nasal drawl that she had in her voice was the same nasal drawl that some lady comedian on TV has, and I've never thought that lady very funny. So when I perceived that drawl in this person, I immediately began having an intimate conversation with myself, self-talking about this young lady, and decided, even at that point, I would never go back to this fine restaurant. The next night I went back, that girl was our waitress. She had that drawl, but people, she was a dynamic waitress. She served us well. She earned a high tip. And I will go back and eat in that restaurant any time I'm in Ogden, Utah. And I would like a conversation with a young lady. But you see how the self-confidence, that intimate conversation, can put you clear out in left field. Just simply because of the thought processes in the mind that we're not even sure we know about. So sub-vocalization is very, very powerful. We ought to have an hour to talk about the power of these Dick's dimensions, but let's leave that for the I Am tape. We will do an I Am meditation tape and actually do demonstrations, self-demonstrations, where we verbalize, where we just think it, and where we use the roots of thought. And it will come out very clear, precisely clear, where the power lies in making things happen in your life. So the sub-vocalization is very powerful. The intimate conversation you hold with yourself that goes on 24 hours a day, at least all waking and during the dream sleep, and maybe even while you're deep asleep. Very, very powerful. That's the intimate conversation that you hold with yourself. And then we go to the roots of thought. The roots of thought are those images that flash 100, 150, who knows? How much can you think of in a second? As we do in class and demonstrate this, let's do it right now. All of you think of a hunting trip in Alaska. No, let's go on to Africa. Think of hunting in Africa for a few moments. Just think of it. That's enough. What did you think of? A zebra and a giraffe and maybe the porter? People, how many roots of thought flashed up? How many of you thought of ice and snow and a polar bear? Because I said Alaska. How many of you thought of blue sky, of an ocean you crossed, of all the trees and the greenery, of the heat, of night, of day? You see, all of that was in your perspective and roots of thought. And it goes on so fast sometimes we don't even know what we think about. Don't even know what we think about. And again, an hour is needed here to cover that, and we will cover that part of finding out what's in our minds and how to change it with the I Am affirmation tape, which will be a special bonus tape offered in this series of Tape of the Month Club. So let's go back to the one of subvocalization for just a moment, because that's really the most powerful, intimate conversation you have with yourself. It moves right along. It's a total thought process. It's all hooked together. That is your total self-confidence. And you have been totally self-confident about everything in your life. Totally self-confident. Again, haven't you been totally self-confident about depression? Now stop for a moment and circle. Realize that when you're depressed, what are you spending all your time thinking about? You're thinking about depression. That means you have the intimate conversation in your mind thinking about depression 24 hours a day. And if you'll change that intimate conversation and think about happiness, and it doesn't even matter, you can use it too. Go golfing if that'll change your intimate conversation. Go fishing. Call up somebody. Do anything to break that self-confidence and depression. And it'll leave you. To intimately converse with yourself 24 hours a day can cause delicious depression, it can cause delicious happiness, it can cause successful abundance, it can cause successful poverty. You see, the job you're holding, when you go to work in the morning, you have an intimate conversation about that job, and your day pretty well goes along with that intimate conversation. It's going to be one H of a day. That's what it'll be. It's going to be a great day. Good morning, God. I'm going to give my intimate conversation in a positive way today, and the job will change. Again, I've said it many times as I talk to people. I'm totally amazed how much my wife improves when I change that intimate conversation I hold within myself about my relationship and marriage. She improves by leaps and bounds when I just change that thought process. So sit back and realize that whatever conversation you hold, your thought processes within yourself, whatever you're thinking is an affirmation, it's a prayer. And if you want displeasure, intimately converse about it. Intimately converse about it. Think about it. Understand it. There's different forms of intimately conversing. Worry. Worry is an intimate conversing. That's thought patterns that you have all day long, right? If you really want something to happen in your life, worry about it. That's a good intimate conversation, hooking all the words together and with total confidence that you're going to get it. Now, you can intimately converse in this area, worry in this area, positive or negative. I had one lady stand up in class and say, aha. I said, what is it? She said, I've learned to worry good, about the good things. You see, my wife used to sing in a choir. And about Thursday, and she has a very beautiful voice, and about Thursday, before the Sunday performance, and she was a soloist quite often, she began to intimately converse with herself about the giggles. She just knew she was going to get the giggles when it come time for her to sit down in choir. And she worried about it, and worried about it, and worried about it, and when Sunday happened, and her bottom touched that chair, it was like a triggering mechanism, and she got what? She got the giggles. The whole choir got the giggles. In fact, they're known as the giggling choir. I'm not sure that was a bad idea. In fact, I think it was pretty good instead of being so solemn. But you see, you can worry about laughter until you laugh. You can have an intimate conversation about that beautiful, sleek, slender body every morning and every night in meditation where the energy is high, and you will have a sleek, slender body. You can have an intimate conversation 24 hours a day about the business being a tremendous success, and it will, and you can have an intimate conversation about it failing, and it will fail. You see, a business cannot succeed or fail. The intimate conversation of those people involved in that business cause it to succeed or cause it to fail. You cannot. Your self-image portrayed into your self-confidence will make it succeed or fail. The business is just a sterile thing. We've seen one business, a record shop, go high. The other business simply drop down with the same stock. What failed? We've seen those sport figures, those beautiful sport figures that go out and they're a winner. They win. You've got Joe Namath, who in football and everything he does, he wins. He wins. He's going into acting, he'll win there too. What's his intimate conversation he holds with himself 24 hours a day? I'm a winner. And you know, when they hired him to put on a pantyhose ad, they didn't hire him because of his beautiful legs. They hired Joe Namath because he has that air about him, I am a winner. Muhammad Ali. What's his intimate conversation 24 hours a day? And then his verbal conversation, he's not afraid to say it. What is it? I'm a winner. I am a winner. Now, you may not agree with all of that, but he is a winner, and he is the best today. No one's disproved it at this point, and we have to face up to that. You see, his intimate conversation 24 hours a day is, I'm Muhammad Ali, and I'm a winner, and he is. And as long as he knows he's the winner and holds that intimate conversation, and no one gets that conversation going in their mind higher than he will be the best. He has that self-confidence. So we see them hire these people for running colleges, an area that they've never even been involved in before. We see them, this winning personality, we see that person with no education hired in to be on the board of directors of a major corporation or a major board for the United States government, because he has the intimate conversation 24 hours a day that I can succeed, I will win. Be totally aware of it, and then let's bring it down into our level. Not all of the sports figures and the big high ones. Let's bring it down into the level. Let's say that we can hold an intimate conversation about our marriage that, oh, it's a mess. And what will your marriage be? You have total self-confidence in the mess, don't you? Now, if you can turn your thoughts around, you can even play with them. You can make them up facetiously at first. Begin saying them, begin playing with them, and have that intimate conversation that it is a success, and it is a beautiful wife, and it's a beautiful husband, and the fun. Go back and look at your successes, and success will breed success, and then your confidence will be in a winning marriage. It simply will. When you go out, have you seen one man throw a bowling ball? He throws it down there, and he has a gutter ball halfway down. I've seen one man have total self-confidence in gutter balls all the rest of the evening. Talk about them out loud to himself. He just knew he was going to throw gutter balls. Oh, boy, this weekend's a gutter ball weekend. Because you throw one gutter ball in life with awareness. Do you ever need to throw another one? No. But if you have self-confidence you're going to throw another one, you keep talking about it to yourself, you will throw the next one a gutter ball. We see the next man stand up the lane and say, I threw a gutter ball, but watch me this time. The next one goes right in the pocket, and zappo, we have a strike. People, circle, circle. In your marriage, in your business, in your health, in your happiness, in your bowling, in your swimming. You never have to throw a gutter ball twice. If you throw a gutter ball once, wake up, wake up. Your confidence was in that area. Turn your confidence around and say, this time it's a strike. This time it's happiness. This time it's peace. This time it's beauty. And use any tool you need. I'm not above going fishing if depression hits, just to use a simple physical tool to turn my conversation around to a beautiful thing so I have happiness the rest of the day. If golfing is a tool that'll make you do that, go do it. If you're an airplane pilot and you're totally pressed at having an intimate conversation about depression or bank failure or business failure at 12 o'clock noon, get in your airplane and fly till you get in the clouds and you get a feeling of lightness and you turn that conversation around. Once you turn that conversation around, come back and get with the business. Now you can do something with it. Remember, the mind cannot fail. Your mind is a non-failing device. It cannot fail. It picks up from your thought patterns, and your thinking is what happens in your life. You see, we conceive it, we think it, we put it into thought patterns, we verbalize it, and for whatever it's worth, whatever comes out of our mouth is you. And if you want to check on your self-confidence someday, take a tape recorder up, set it behind a curtain. Record your conversation for about 4 hours in a business relationship, in the relationship with your husband, with your wife, any part of your life. You can find out what your self-confidence is. Just go ahead and have a normal conversation. Because you see, you're saying what you think. And after the people leave, don't use it for anything that's not correct, but after the people leave, then play this and listen to what come out of your mouth, and you will know what your intimate conversation in life is. Most of us have total self-confidence in procrastination. We know we're going to procrastinate. We know we do it all the time. You see, when you get out of bed in the morning, you're going to know you've got 10,000 things to do. What do you first think? What's your intimate conversation? What's your self-confidence? Oh, my gosh, I'll never be able to get these done all day. Now, that's a new affirmation, and you've just told the mind, why get too excited about it? Because we can't get them done anyway. So we have all learned to procrastinate, but don't be too concerned about this, because you learning to procrastinate, we're taught that. It's somebody else's fault. Now, isn't that a relief? We can blame it on somebody else. But we are teaching our children right now to procrastinate. And remember, the result of procrastination is that frustration within the body. And mind controls brain chemistry, body chemistry, that every cell within your body. We're one mind-brain-body unit. And when you don't make decisions and you let yourself procrastinate, then you're going to get the poison into some organ within the body. As we use in our lectures, the gizzard. Using the gizzard because we don't have one, and just well put the poison in something you don't have. Let's now take the second half of this thing, self-confidence and procrastination, and deal with procrastination, then show how we may get a self-confidence and a tool, a physical tool, that we can use to cause the aha to get us out of procrastination. Circle, circle, circle with me now. You were taught to procrastinate. You were actually taught to procrastinate. You see, the procrastination takes place simply because you're putting off, and you learn to put off. In fact, Mom and Dad taught you, and you're teaching your children to do it right now. Can't you remember? I can remember the day I really learned to procrastinate. Now, I'd been procrastinating before this, and one day, though, I woke up in the morning, and I was born and raised on a ranch in Modoc County, California, and it was work, work, work. In fact, I've got an old tape, makes hay while the sun shines, and boy, when it rains, I love it, because that means you can go in the barn and relax. So we worked all the time, and we dogged it a little bit, as you will, as you're growing up. But one day I decided I'd change my ways, and I would just simply not procrastinate. I would get out and do anything Dad told me. So I walked out, and it was very early in the morning. It was one of those blue sky mornings, and Warner Mountains right in back that raised to 10,000 feet, and big fluffy clouds in the sky, and it was a crisp morning. And I said, Dad, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you today to get the corn hoed. Now, normally that's a 3-day job, because these corn rows are about 400 feet long, and there was 14 rows of them, and there's a hill every foot. So I decided, okay, I'll do it, and I'll do it 100%. And I grabbed the hoe, I sharpened it, went out into the corn patch, and I went to work, and I sweat. 2.5 hours later, I had hoed 14 rows of corn, and I'd done it 100%. And I guess with the idea that if I got this done, there'd probably be a reward. Maybe I'd get to go to the barn and listen to the horses eat the hay, or maybe even get to go fishing, at least lay down and read a funny book, which at that age I was totally hooked on. And not too bad to get hooked on them by the same token. But I guess this reward I was looking for. So Dad was out in the barnyard, and I went out and said, Dad, I got the corn hoed. He said, you couldn't. I said, yes, it is. I've hoed it all. He said, well, you didn't do a good enough job. Go do it again. I said, Dad, I did it perfect. Come look. So he came with me, and he walked up the full length, and he got in the middle of the corn, and he walked back down. It was tall enough you just see his head stick out once in a while. He said, by gosh, that's the best job I've ever seen. You've done a fantastic job, Burl. And I began to absorb my reward, begin to think of the fishing trips, and he said, boy, you got that done so quick. Now get out and mow the lawn. Now, the lawn on our ranch was about a half acre. And it had a ditch that run through it and a lot of box elder trees. So to do it and do it right, it was a half a day's job. And I usually took 3 days to do that. But today, no procrastination, let's do it. I got out and I went at mowing that lawn, and I did it perfect. I trimmed around the rose bushes, around the bottom of the fence post, around the ditch bank. And I can still see Dad walking around the corner of the old house looking out and saying, boy, Earl, you're a house afire. You're doing a fantastic job. And Mother appeared in the front door of the house, just finishing the lawn now. And she said, boy, he's accomplishing things in a great way today. Send him in and he can mop the kitchen floor. I learned at that moment, don't do it when they tell you. Because if you do it, there's just going to be something else given to you. And you begin to put off. You learned it right then, and you begin to put off, and as you put it off, then you get the product of frustration, that chemistry in the system that keeps lodging in, that uneasiness. I should be getting it done. You see, we were taught that. It carried into your schoolwork. You waited till the last 15 minutes. And for young people, if you can just convince yourself or convince them to do your assignment the first 15 minutes, sit there daydreaming the rest. When the teacher comes down and says you're not doing anything, you can say, I have it done. You see, we taught ourselves to procrastinate, or we're taught to procrastinate. Now we've got to do something about it, and you're teaching your youth. You give your son a job, and when he finishes, you give him another, and give him another. We're working on a different format with our youth today, an absolute different format. We give them a job, and they know this, and they claim their time, and they must do it 100%, nothing less. They must do it the very best. But when they finish that, if I give them an hour and a half job, and they finish that in 30 minutes, and on inspection it's done well, then they have the next hour to ride their bicycle, ride the Honda, take the BB gun and go up through the field, whatever they want to do. And you know, those children are becoming starters instead of finishers, and it's carrying through their whole life. They're going to school and doing their assignment the first 15 minutes, and then letting it go. It must be done 100%. But give them that extra time as a reward. Now think about it. Circle with it. If you will start this format and discuss it with your children, you will see fantastic results, not only in the home. When you get your bedroom cleaned up, clean it. Give them 35 or 40 minutes, and if they can clean their bedroom 100% in 20 minutes, then they've got the other 20 minutes to cut out dolls, to write a letter, to make a message to someone else. You see, work with their children in that format, and they will become starters, not finishers. Starters, not finishers. If I was to teach school, I would teach it on a total format, and I mean this, and I wish everybody in the education world could hear this, because it'll work. It's not wild, it's not big, it just simply works. I would take my students, and they usually give you an hour to study one subject, and the teacher expects you to take the full hour to work on that. I would tell my students, when you do this and understand it and you have it 100% correct, you can take the balance of the hour to go out and play basketball, baseball, jump rope, do what you want. And you know, I would only need to teach those children the 15 minutes out of every hour in their classroom. They would learn it, they would start, they would finish, they would be out on their grounds. And they would have plenty of time for the learning. I believe because of this teaching ourselves to procrastinate, that we are wasting time in our life in a fantastic dimension, and we start right out training the children when they're 6 years old or even in kindergarten. And if we would turn the format around and let that child start it, finish it, then give the free time that reward, take that time off, we could change our time element in our life and have hours of time. Think about it. Think for just a moment, how many things do you put off and put off and put off till the last moment? Now let's take a technique right now that can change that, can turn you around a full circle so you become the starter. You get it done in the first 15 minutes. Now you were trained to be a finisher. Wait till the last moment before you do it. If you will take this technique and use it without fail for 21 days, I know what it did in my life, and I've seen what it has done for others. And it's this simple. You need this time, or even the next time as you listen to this tape, to get a pencil so that you can make some notes. But create the picture this time and make the notes later. All you need to do to eliminate procrastination in your life is to do something in the physical dimension called making a list. Now, a list must be made a certain way, because if you make the list the way everybody usually makes lists, it's a fallacy. It'll work against you. You see, the first fallacy in making a list is that you get out of bed in the morning and you think, oh, I've got so much to do that I'll never get it done anyway. There's your affirmation, and you'll find all kinds of excuses that day to not do anything. You'll find excuses to call somebody on the telephone that you don't need to call. You'll find an excuse to go down to the grocery store. In fact, a good procrastinator, the one who puts it off, needs things to do as an excuse. And you'll find a good procrastinator never shops all their groceries once a week or once a month. They run down for a loaf of bread today. Tomorrow they run down for some napkins. The next day you get coffee. You have to have something to do so you can really enjoy your procrastination. Now, a master list will do this. Understand, we need 3 lists. In the center, you put a master list. This, you list everything that you've got to do that you can think of the rest of your life. And it doesn't matter if there's 10 items on it. It doesn't matter if there's 2,000. And every day that this is a running list, and every day that you think of something else you should do, you add it to the master list, and you do not number it. Do not number your master list. That's the fallacy. One of the fallacies of a list is that. You see, we get up in the morning and say, okay, I've got 10 things to do today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We number the page first. Then we start writing down those things we've got to do, and when we get to number 5, we think, gosh, I should have thought of that first. We get to number 7, I should have thought of that first. Then we go back and frustrate all day trying to do this list from 1 to 10. Don't number it. Never number the master list. Just list everything you can think of that you've got to do, and it doesn't matter if it takes a page 10 feet long. Get them out of your mind onto this list, and that is a magnificent thing right there. You see, how many of you are spending at least 2 hours a day trying to remember what you should be doing? Trying to remember what you should remember. Put them down on a piece of paper, and immediately there is a freedom. You've got them saved on a piece of paper. Now you can use that full confidence. You can use that full brain-mind functioning to reach out to accomplish something. You can look for the answers instead of spending that time remembering. See, what was that I was supposed to think of to do? Get them down on a master list. Do not number them. Put them up on a wall. Then it's a good idea to make the next day's list the night before, and this is called a daily list. Now you look at the master list and you pick out 1, 2, or 3 items, no more than you can finish early that day. Make sure you do not take on more than you can finish, say by 4 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock you make the decision, the rest of the day is for myself. You draw a line under those 3 or 4 items that you put on the daily list, and then you think of what you want to do as a reward for yourself. And that doesn't matter. It can be crocheting as a lady. It can be riding your bicycle, riding your motorcycle. It can be going out to the airport and flying an airplane for an hour. It can be sitting back and watching TV. It can be reading a good book. But something you want to do that feels delicious to you. Write your reward down on that daily list first. That's the most important thing. Don't you remember the day that you were going to get all of those things done so you could start on your vacation by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you had them all done because a reward was coming up? You see, if you're looking forward to a reward, you will get these things done 100%, get finished so you can go on with the reward. And if you don't place the reward in there for the most important person in the world, and you deserve a reward after doing those things, if you don't place that reward in there, then you are simply going to frustrate all day because you never make a decision to stop. Place the reward in, and even if you're not finished with those 3 items, you can put that first on the list tomorrow. Do your reward. Do this technique for 21 days and fantastic difference comes into your life. Now on this daily list, you've reached down, looked down your master list, and you've looked through all of them. So you pick the first most important one. None of them are numbered. You pick the most important one. You transfer that over to the daily list, scratching it off of the master list. It's come from the master to the daily. Now you pick the second most important thing and the third. Don't number them yet. Let them lay on that daily list for a while. Come back and look at them, perhaps with a cup of coffee, and say, now, really, how do I want to do these? Oh, I think I'll do that third one first. So you put one there. You must number it, but not until you've let it sink in a while. Okay, I'm going to do this 2, and I'm going to do this 3. All right, now you've got divine right flow. It's there. You will do those. You'll just do number 1 without thinking of number 2. You'll do number 2 without thinking of number 3. You'll let it flow, occupying that physical space at that time, using all of your brain-mind functioning, all of your self-confidence to get it done. And when the reward comes, you can have the reward totally free. Go to the beach to get the suntan, knowing you have accomplished those things well, and you've really escaped to the wilderness. Now, the wilderness only exists within your mind. One time I went to the high Sierras and looked out over the beautiful Blue Mountain lakes where the covered wagons had crossed on the Immigrant Trail. It's called Immigrant Gap. Way back in the country, deer walking down, you still see the roots of the old wagon wheels, where they had to take the wagons apart and let them 300 feet down over the side of a cliff and lead the oxen and the mules 20 miles around, put the wagons together, go on. And I was sitting up there thinking, boy, having an intimate conversation, I can't pay my bills. I ought to be home working. I ought to be trying to find another job. You see, I had no vacation at all because of my self-confidence and procrastination. I'd just as well been home, correct? You do this daily list, give yourself that reward, make the decision, and people, you can begin having vacations for the most important person in the world. Now, one more step, and maybe the most important step. More important than the master list, more important than the daily list, more important than the reward list. As soon as you finish that on the reward list, on the daily list, you then go over here and create a success list. A success list. And cross it out when you've done it on the daily list and transfer it to the success list. Every time you finish a job, give yourself credit. You see, your mind doesn't joke, it doesn't know the meaning of joke, and it doesn't know who's talking to it. And when you say, I've just finished it, but how many do? We plan the job a little bit, we do it, and then we never sit back and say, hey, you did a good job, you finished that. Say it, think it, verbalize it, and then write it on a success list so you can see it. Now, your success list ought to be on a big roller type piece of paper where you can just keep adding successes, 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 because when you complete anything that day, it was a success. So all of your positive successes you put on this list, and you never cross any of those out. And you should reread that success list each day before you start the day's activities. And you see, after 20 days, you've got 60 successes on there if you've only done 3 things a day and done them well. And success breeds success. Your mind will get excited because you see what you're doing. Give yourself the reward and then cross them off of the daily list and put them on a success list. People, if you keep track of your successes, your intimate conversation will turn to successes, your self-confidence will turn to successes in the positive area, and you have a successful life coming right then. So get excited about this. Get started. Success breeds success. Start a master list now. Start a master list right now. When you finish this tape, if you want this technique to work, go get yourself a good large piece of paper. Write down everything that's in your mind that's been bothering you that you need to get out of your consciousness. Write them down. Let the paper save them so you can free all of that beautiful brain-mind functioning to have self-confidence in completion of something. Make this list long as it needs to be, and as soon as you have the total list, remember the daily list. Do not number the master list. Repetition here, but it's so important. If you number it, it won't work. Your mind will try to go to 1, 2, and 3. Leave those open. Pick the 3 most important, put them on the daily list, but before you put anything on that daily list, decide what your reward will be for you that day. Write your reward down, so important. Think about it a while before you put the jobs over there. Think how great it's going to be to get that suntan, how great it's going to be to go over and visit with Millie totally free because you've got your work done. You can have a real vacation. Then list those 3 things on there, have a cup of coffee, then number them. Then get at them and get them done. Because you got a reward coming. And then as soon as you finish one, don't finish all 3 first, finish one, go over and put it on the success list. I just had a success. Whoopee. Aha. Great. And say it out loud. Just successfully got the dishes done. Just successfully vacuumed the house. Just successfully packed the wood in. Hey, all those little successes will breed the big successes you want in life. Keep that success list going. And at the end of the year, people, if you've just done 3 things totally successful each day, do you know how many successes you're going to have on that list? 3 times 365, and if you don't work Sundays, you're going to have a whole bunch. So place them there and see what begins to happen in your life. Now let's take just a moment to sit back and relax and think of these things. Let them run through your mind. Anything. Now get them all on the list so your mind doesn't have to stray out. Do you have a phone call that you haven't made to somebody? Do you have letters that you're behind in writing? If you do, you're having frustration pour through. Do you have flowers you need to send somebody? Have you got some bookkeeping that's not up to date? Have you got some painting on the house that needs to be done? Is there something in the backyard and moving a rose bush from one to the other place that you haven't done that's bothering you? Be totally aware of all of these things. Get them down, get them out of your mind. And then you can take one big job that day and then take a smaller job. In fact, there's another technique that dovetails in here. How many of you people worry about other people's problems and your problems? You see, if you'll write them on a master list, you'll get them out of the mind so you don't have to worry about them. They're safe. They're safe. It was 2 years ago that a couple came to me, a couple of girls, and gave us a delicious, absolute delicious, powerful little, simple, funny technique that can change your life. This is in a little different area, but let's share it as we have a few moments here, and then we'll recap this for just a moment, and maybe have a slight meditation to let these things begin unfolding for us. And this is the story of the cookie jar. There was 2 young girls who lived with a Nana, and the Nana raised them all their life, and all week long they would see Nana putting things down on a piece of paper and then putting them in her cookie jar. She'd just write something every now and then on a cookie jar and put it in the cookie jar and put the lid back on, and then they noticed every Saturday morning at about 8 o'clock she dumped everything in that cookie jar out on the table and went through all of it and usually wadded up most of it and threw it away. So they said, Nana, what's in the cookie jar? What do you use that cookie jar for? She said, you wouldn't understand yet in your life, but she said, when it's right, I will tell you someday. And these young ladies grew up and they married and went out and were having their own families. And there was a reunion one time that Nana was at, and one of the girls looked at Nana and said, Nana, would you tell us now what that cookie jar, it's always been a mystery what it was. And she said, yes, with a little laugh and a giggle. I'll tell you what the cookie jar was. She said, that's my worry jar. She said, all week long, when I have anything to worry about, I write it on a slip of paper, and I put it in my worry jar, and I pick Saturday morning from 8 till noon to worry. I don't worry the rest of the week. I release it the rest of the week. I don't even think about it the rest of the week. I put it on a piece of paper and put it in my cookie jar. And Saturday morning, I take it out and worry about it. And she said, usually those things that I would have had to worry about by Saturday are all taken care of. Now circle with me, folks. Circle, people. How many of you have worried about something all week long for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, and it didn't even take place? How many of you people worried about how you're going to vote because of Watergate and you didn't have to vote? You see, Grandma or Nana was very, very wise. She put them all in because the age-old secret is this. If you want an answer to a problem, you must make a vacuum. You must get the problem out of the way so an answer can come in. And the answer's here. If you'll release the problem, put it in a cookie jar. And for you people who are carrying extra body weight, are you actually carrying the burdens of others? Some people, I believe, are confessors, actual confessors of people. Everywhere you go, people tell you your problems. And you know your subconscious doesn't know whether it's your problem or somebody else's. And you go home and start worrying about it. You start holding an intimate conversation about it. And pretty soon you've got total self-confidence in somebody else's problem and what blooms in your life. We've seen this in method acting in Hollywood. The man who acts the vandal, the gambler, the wild man or wild woman, and after 6 or 7 years you see that person drop out of acting. He was good. Just gone. You haven't heard from him for 6, 7 years, and he comes back and you say, where have you been? He said, I had to go out and get my head straight again. You betcha. He had total self-confidence in his act, and his act became him. And he wanted to come back and branch into all stratas of the acting business to keep himself level, because his intimate conversation had turned to that. So you got to put it in a cookie jar. You see, the actor who can come home and put his job in a cookie jar and be himself, but how many times does he keep it? Because he's had it all day, keep it going through the house at night. The businessman, how many of you put your business in a cookie jar when you walk home at night? Now, you've got to do it. You see that man that goes out and plays golf 3 days a week, he's not thinking. He's put all his business in a cookie jar. He left it in the office. And you see he's freed his mind, and he may have a problem, but he's not thinking of the problem. He's out there, and what can pop in? He can get more answers playing 3 rounds of golf 3 times in the week than he could sitting in that office stewing over the problems. So it's a release technique. And it works. If you physically are worrying about everybody else's problems, and you have a weight problem, my mother, I understand she was 98 pounds when she married, and Mother made the transition in her late 50s at almost 200 pounds. Mother was a person who helped everybody in Surprise Valley, Modoc County, California. Most anybody that had a problem come in and unload it on Mom, and boy, did she take it, and her mind didn't know. And if you would ask your mom, did you know so-and-so? She'd say, oh, yes, I remember them. It was on the 3rd of May, 1938, that the buckboard ran away and threw the lady out of the wagon, and she broke her hips. Mother didn't know, as beautiful and as great a metaphysician she was, didn't know the technique of release. If she simply had have been able to release these, she would have had a fantastic, beautiful life, and perhaps the trip would have been just a little longer for her, and she certainly wouldn't have carried that burden. Now, the master list is sort of like that. It's sort of putting it in a cookie jar, isn't it? But let's use the cookie jar as a separate technique. It's worries of other people. If you are spending your time worrying about other people, about things, write them on a slip of paper, put them in that cookie jar, pick one time a week to worry. Now, I don't like the word worry in my vocabulary, so I would cancel that, and I have a concerned can. I put all my concerns in a can all week long. And Saturday morning, which is my one day that usually I do not teach or lecture or work with people, I take all of these out at 8 o'clock in the morning, go through all of them, and you'd be amazed that just simply because you release those problems, allowing an answer to come in, 90% will have come to conclusion. You don't have to spend any frustration on them. You don't have to get to your gizzard with them. And if there's 2 or 3, unless they have to be done right now, 2 or 3 that haven't come to completion, I'll be totally aware of them, put them back in the concern can for another week. So you can put all of your concerns in a can that will lighten your body, that will give you freedom. And it will allow the magic of releasing the problem, just as the technique is if you have a problem at night and you can't sleep because of the problem. Thinking of the problem is just going to breed the problem. That's not going to get you an answer. Wrap it up in a cookie jar, put it on a shelf, and say, I'll see you in the morning. With that beautiful release, chances are by the next morning, you've let this fantastic, successful, self-confident, non-failing device called your computer or your brain, called the I am within you, called your God, give you the answer. And you see the answer to any problem in the world is here now, if you will just release. Put in a cookie jar and allow the answer to come to you. Professional men have learned this. The doctor who puts all these patients in a cookie jar can go his whole life and serve the health profession and not become ill. And that person who does not will die of sickness. You see, we like to think our doctor thinks of us. He doesn't think of you. Viral Mentos coming in. And the nurse pulls out your file, pulls out your sheet, puts it down. The doctor looks, well, we've done this, this, and this. Today we give him 2 shots of penicillin. We take his blood pressure, it's normal, etc. And when you walk out of the office, he puts you back in a cookie jar, and he doesn't think of you till you come in next time. Because if he tried to carry all of the ills that he treats in just 1 week on his mind, what would be his reward in life? He would die of illness. The businessman who can leave those problems in the office at night in that cookie jar allow himself the freedom to visit with his wife and with his friends and watch some TV and maybe meditate a while, will allow his mind to reach out and receive the answer, and the answer's here now. You see, when we put the problem of energy in a cookie jar, the problem of it in a cookie jar, what can our minds reach out and find? They're going to find the answer, the way to use this energy in a different way that we already have here. Perhaps it's the answer to gravity. But somebody's going to get it, not being concerned about the problem. They're going to put it on a master list so they get the problem out of their mind. They're going to put it in a cookie jar, get the problem out of their mind so that they can reach out and then allow the answer to come to you. Become totally aware of this. Circle with it. People, do not say, I'm going to try to do this. Get that out of your vocabulary. Say, I will tonight, and right after this tape. If you would get a piece of paper and start writing down all of those things that you have to do, get them out of your mind. Get the freedom there. Then transfer them, just enough of them. You can get them done early to your daily list. Write your reward down first. Then transfer those successes to your success list. And if it's those worry patterns you're having about other people's problems that don't really concern you, put them in the cookie jar. Release them so the beautiful answers can come to you. Eliminate procrastination from your life. Use these techniques. And beautiful, happy self-confidence in the positive way for the rest of your life.